Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the Dark Triad himself, Leffen. Leffen is a top fighting game player who has a massive following online. He specializes in Melee, but he has also displayed his skills in other games such as Dragon Ball FighterZ and Guilty Gear Strive. His immense skill has helped him gain a large fan base and a prominent position in the Smash community. However, Leffen has historically been one of the most despicable people to exist in the FGC. Anytime he tries to enter a new community, he gets rejected for being unnecessarily toxic and confrontational. There is only one community that is willing to accept him, and it's ironically the community he's done the most amount of damage to. Today, we will cover how Leffen has permanently damaged the Smash community. I want to start this video off by saying that it isn't fair to criticize people for what they did several years ago, because people can change with time. However, what if the person has barely changed, if at all? Is it still unfair to criticize a person for being toxic 10 years ago, even if they are still toxic today? This is the question I will try to answer with this video. In 2013, Leffen was banned from competing in Sweden due to several complaints about his behavior both at tournaments and online. This behavior ranged from personal insults meant to target and belittle the shortcomings of others, to manipulating people's social circles to turn against them, to cyber stalking and online harassment. These actions were done over the course of 2 years, and once it reached a boiling point, a group of Swedish TOs and players got together to compile all the evidence and testimonies that would justify his ban. This evidence was stored in a zip file that was kept private from the public until very recently. I'll leave a link down in the description below if you want to read the full thing, just so that nobody can downplay the significance of what happened. This segment is meant to give proper context to why Leffen was banned. I don't think anyone should be defending or downplaying what Leffen did 10 years ago, but that's the thing. It happened almost 10 years ago when Leffen was still a teenager, and he has grown and changed since then, right? This video is intended to debunk these arguments and prove that Leffen has barely, if at all, changed since the days of evidence.zip. Okay, so we know that Leffen wasn't the best person back in the day, but that was almost 10 years ago when Leffen was still a teenager. Obviously he has to have changed, right? However, part of growing and changing is properly acknowledging what actually occurred. This is something Leffen has failed to do. Ever since he was banned from Sweden, Leffen has claimed that evidence.zip was nothing but a ploy to remove him from the community, even playing the victim in his own quote-unquote apology. He has downplayed the severity of what he did numerous times, and has even collaborated with TSM and Red Bull to do so. Over these past 8 years, Leffen has been able to shift the narrative from Leffen was a terrible person to now Leffen did some bad stuff, but a lot of us have. Which is not an accurate representation of what took place 8 years ago, as we all know. But Leffen has a massive advantage when it comes to shifting the narratives, since he has a massive stan base that will believe anything he says. So as a result, the truth about evidence.zip was swept under the rug until the metagame documentary aired in December of last year. In one of the episodes, a few of Leffen's victims shared their opinions of Leffen.
My relationship with Leffen was very bad. We started to see sort of like a pattern, which was sort of like poison for the community, I would say.
Yeah, his trash talk was different, to be honest. It wasn't a brotherly. He went very, very personal with a lot of people, like telling people who've been to mental hospitals twice that they don't respect them, that he doesn't respect them because of their mental health.
And he gets him with the up smash, early up smash.
Like
kill,
I said,
he taunts.
always.
Him and I never got off very well. My first interaction with him was that I told him, oh, hey, I'm kind of having a really bad hearing issue where I can't really pick up and work at the same level as most people do. What he did in reaction to that was basically making fun of me. Like he said, oh, but can you hear this? And then he tried like mouthing words. It really always felt like he was focusing on my shortcomings as a human being.
This was the closest the public had ever gotten to the truth about evidence.zip, and this had the potential to shift the community narrative on what actually happened 10 years ago. All Leffen has to do at this point is accept the fact that what was done, and show that he has grown since then. I cannot emphasize this point enough. I do believe Leffen should have every right to get his own interview and try to show how he's grown since evidence.zip. However, that's not what he did.
Leffen, who wants the current generation to know nothing about why he got banned, took to Twitter on December 12th to discredit the metagame broadcast. Leffen told an endless amount of lies that night. His lies range from evidence.zip being a conspiracy to the people behind the ban being abusive toward him and his friends, to making it seem as though he never did anything wrong. Leffen's tweets culminated in a massive lie which suggested that evidence.zip was never anything more than a collection of forum posts, and that nothing people had just watched was actually real. He also made the tweet in which he suggested that I'd written evidence.zip all by myself in the midst of a manic episode. The extreme pressure Leffen put on Samox forced Samox to agree to censor future runs of metagame to not include this type of footage. As the last remaining evidence.zip victim, witnessing this disturbed me greatly. I was even more disturbed when I saw that 4 months later, Samox announced that he'd be returning with a revised version of metagame that would include a featured Leffen episode. This was Samox's way of redeeming himself among the current generation. I need to be clear about exactly how serious this is. By telling tons and tons and tons of lies the night metagame aired, Leffen was able to pressure Samox into releasing propaganda. Not only was Leffen pissing on the graves of the evidence.zip victims who don't play Melee anymore by doing so, but he was also forcing our premier filmmaker to bend to his will. The revised version of metagame eventually came out on June 5th. As you can see, Leffen managed to not only get a featured episode, but also the highest priority in terms of interview footage. The revised version of metagame would end up including 90 minutes of interview footage in which Leffen lied about nearly everything that happened back during the evidence.zip era.
This in and of itself is a bad thing to do. However, the biggest issue with doing this is that if he's really changed since evidence.zip, why would he go through the trouble to do all this? It's almost as if he hasn't changed and still acts this way today. Leffen is one of the most confrontational people in the Smash community. He lives in a perpetual bubble of toxicity where he has to be starting beef with someone on Twitter in order to boost his own ego. His superiority complex forces him to invalidate others that have respectable opinions, and he gets away with this because his toxicity breeds a toxic stan base that eats up everything he says as gospel. It doesn't matter whether he's right or wrong, he just wants to display a show of dominance over others.
The first attempt to correct Leffen was made just a few minutes later. No one in Leffen's chat had contested what Leffen was saying despite it being wrong, so a box moderator named Slamist felt the need to intervene. He told Leffen that analog L cancels are better than digital L cancels. Take a look at what ended up happening to him.
User Slamist. One time out, sounds about right. Melee is not for the average person. Light press, hard press? Yeah, I mean, this guy's just full of shit.
Leffen and Slamist ended up getting into an argument over the subject. Leffen then began roasting Slamist in front of over 1,000 people as to make an example out of anyone who questioned his word.
But yeah, hard pressing with L cancel is in general better, because it option select attack.
Leffen would end up banning Slamist. Then Leffen began to refer to me as an evil overlord, which shows how personally invested he was in proving me wrong. The argument you just heard Leffen give about option selected text is incorrect as well. At the time Leffen said this, he didn't know that you get locked out of tech if you press L or R during hit lag. Because of this mechanic, you're supposed to perform the option select he's referring to by analog L canceling during hit lag, then pressing L or R afterward to tech.
Leffen has over 290,000 followers on Twitter at the time of this recording, making him one of the largest figures in the Smash community. This means that when he argues with someone, he's often able to ratio them with ease since his opponent will be outmatched. There's a quote that goes, "Never argue with stupid people, they will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience." That is, fortunately not a Hitler quote, but it is still one that is very applicable to the current situation. I've previously discussed the degenerate argument style that Leffen and his supporters use all the time on Twitter, where you argue using several short quips instead of long, detailed, and thought-out arguments. This style is highly effective because it turns the discussion from a battle of wits to a battle of stamina. Your opponent won't want to go through the trouble to correct you for the 100th time, and if they don't, it must be because you're right. Combined with the fact that Leffen has no trouble ratioing anyone he wants, this gives off the illusion of winning to any outside spectator. Trying to beat Leffen in a Twitter argument is like pouring an entire bottle of thick molasses onto the floor. It's a painfully slow process that when finished, you realize you've just wasted all your molasses. Leffen isn't arguing to prove that he's right, he's just doing it so he can get attention. And it's ironic because this is exactly what he accuses technicals of doing.
That cockroach doesn't deserve any attention. I'm not backing down, like I still think he's literal scum of the earth. By even responding to that person, I've lost. You know, even just responding, I'm an idiot if I respond.
Now look, I get it. Leffen is a very opinionated player and has every right to express his thoughts on whatever he wants. But M2K is an opinionated player as well, yet you never hear anyone say M2K and his fans are toxic. There is a reason for that. Leffen is so unnecessarily toxic to other people he disagrees with, and it's been normalized to the point that it's become a meme.
Arguing with Leffen on Twitter is like starting beef with Eminem back in the early 2000s. You just don't do it. Like, it doesn't matter if Leffen's right or wrong. A lot of times he's right. You just don't do it. Like, unless you're ready to die on the hill that you're fighting for, you just don't do it. Yeah, right, he would murder me. That dude would argue with me about Samus. I'm closing Twitter. I'm not talking about it. I'm not going to argue with it. And I'm a Samus expert. I'm just staying the fuck out of it. I'm not going to argue with that.
And this is an even bigger problem because his views can negatively impact a game and its community. This became apparent when Leffen first tried to learn Tekken. Tekken is a very unique fighting game and is very unforgiving to newcomers. Leffen, as a newcomer, struggled to pick up the game immediately, and instead of admitting that he didn't know what he was talking about, he instead started to call the game cheese-based and bad.
Oh, I'm getting so tilted by the cheese. I need to play him straight up. Okay, impossible. Impossible. That, what? Is that jab a low? Sick game. Sick bounce. What are you supposed to do against that? That move is fucking unbeatable. Legitimately unfucking beatable. Tekken is by far the most cheesy of all the current fighting games.
Hey Leffen. I know this may be hard to believe, but the problem isn't the game. It's you. You don't know what you're doing yet, and that's perfectly fine. You will learn in time how to play the game, but instantly writing off a game as trash and cheese-based when you don't even know what you're doing is just moronic.
Yeah, I don't know. I get many of his points are quite legitimate, but what I got from this was, if you're a new player coming into Tekken, you want to go to, you don't play offline, don't play online, only play offline, go to events, Google everything, learn everything about frames. And it's just a completely wrong approach of getting into a game. You are talking like a pro player who wants to learn a game super fast and immediately having it become rewarding and satisfying after a week. I should be rewarded by the time I've put down. And it's like, the game is too hard for that. That's why people, they climb this mountain for much longer than a week, and then they get their reward. And the reward is massive. Massive. Because of the mountain you had to climb. That's why people have stuck with this game for 24 years.
It's also funny how Leffen can trash Tekken as a fighting game, but then get upset when the community doesn't respect him. He wants to be able to throw stones, yet he lives in a glass house.
Tekken top players / community figureheads are fine, but Tekken Reddit / Twitch chat / Twitter is legitimately the worst crowd I have ever fucking experienced, and I called Kingdom Hearts a 3 out of 3 10 game on release while having played the mobile game. It is a serious fucking problem, and talking to other streamers, it seems like it's not all exclusive to my chap. Many like to blame me for shitting on the game, lol, as it makes it okay for them to shit on me as a person. And yes, I know half the people frequent R Kappa, and that's strongly related to why they're garbage, but still. We don't have Tekken community meetings where we talk about how we're going to harass you. I think this is you. You're just one of the most popular streamers, so you attract a large crowd. Large crowd equals a higher chance of trolls.
Remember that many fighting games have small but dedicated fan bases. When Leffen plays Tekken on stream, he becomes the largest figure in the Tekken community and brings in a brand new audience that will adopt his opinions of the game. However, Leffen sucks at Tekken, so anyone watching wouldn't take his opinions on the game seriously. So instead, he rationalizes the reasons for why he's losing. Yes, Leffen is struggling with the game, but it's not because he's a newcomer and doesn't know what he's doing yet, it's that the game is a poorly designed fighting game, and as a result, his stan base will reciprocate these ideas. This can make people that were interested in playing and learning Tekken not want to get into the game. Usually, a large figure getting into a new game would be good for the game, but with Leffen, it's nothing but harmful, so when the Tekken community tells people to not listen to your advice and opinions on the game, they're doing it to protect their community. The Tekken community fought back against Leffen when he was giving less than honest opinions about the game. While Leffen did complain about the treatment he was getting, he was the one who incited it so he could complain about it. Playing the victim is nothing new with Leffen. He did this in his apology statements during evidence.zip, he did this when he leaked Haxxers' private DM conversations, and he did this when Metagame showed evidence.zip prospects. This is one of Leffen's favorite plays in his playbook. He will say a bunch of dumb and dishonest things, then when people tell him he's dumb, he acts like he was the victim all along, and the people calling him out are the aggressors. When Smash Ultimate first came out, Leffen and Salem got into an argument over whether Snake was a good character or not. After Leffen insulted Smash 4 players, Salem would go on to make their infamous years of research comments, which gave Leffen a perfect opportunity to defeat Salem and gain support, even though both were guilty of instigating in this scenario. If Leffen can provoke his opponent to escalate a petty video game argument into a personal beef, he can use it as justification to go after someone. This is what he attempted to do with veteran Guilty Gear player Shin Kensu. Kensu's first interaction with Leffen occurred when he joined Leffen's stream chat one time to give advice for the character Chip, who Kensu has played for many years across several Guilty Gear games. Leffen would ban Shin Kensu from his chat as he didn't want to hear what Kensu had to say. Remember, Leffen's ego prevents him from admitting that he doesn't have all the answers, even when he is approached by someone who has more experience in the game. Leffen later apologized to Kensu privately about the matter.
So let's start with the timeline. I joined your stream chat one time just to see what's cracking, make some peace, see what's cracking on this side of Twitch. Saw some things, offered some advice. I get it. You were upset. You weren't trying to hear it. I got ridiculed like a motherfucker. Your chat ridiculed me. And then I got timeout or banned or some shit like that or whatever. I forget. So we can just say one of those things happened. If it didn't, it didn't. Fine, moving on, right? Later on, you came and apologized to me, admitted to being tilted, amongst other things. Good shit. I appreciate that. That let me know that, hey, maybe the shit that people say about this dude is way wrong.
This was a mature move by Leffen that would normally display actual growth and maturity since the days of evidence.zip, but then he follows it up with this.
I'm in Latif's stream. Latif asked me, personally, how I feel about Chip. Because I trained with Latif when he used to live out here in Texas. And he would be here every weekend. And you saw how me and him interacted in that chat about practicing and playing together. I state my opinion, what did you do? Oh, you're crazy, you're on copium, blah, 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 XYZ. Wait a minute, this is the same dude that apologized to me? Oh, okay. Then you have mad people who come into my stream chats, my YouTube comments, and start bitching at me about what the fuck you saying. How the fuck you think that make me feel? Talking about who's tired on Twitter. My dude, now guess what? I get it. You can't control your fucking community. You can't, I get that. But you also had other things that you did. So let's go back to the timeline. Second patch hits. I make my comment day one about the character being fine. Where'd you go? Into my Twitter. Yada yada yada. Blase blase whoop de whoop. I ain't trying to argue with you. Great argument, bro. You missed the part where I said you got it, chief. I'm not trying to argue. I'm worried about getting better. Not arguing about tier list, who's good, who's bad.
As stated in the previous section, this is the stuff Leffen usually does when someone has an opinion he disagrees with. He wants to give his 2 cents and tell the other person why they are wrong, but Kensu, being a level-headed and respectable person, didn't care for arguing with Leffen. He just wanted to enjoy the game because it's his favorite fighting game, and any beef he had with Leffen was completely one-sided, since Kensu actually had respect for Leffen as a competitor.
I even told you. I actually admire what the fuck you've actually done in games, right? I've openly admitted that to you. I've literally watched you play Crom in Smash Brothers. I watched your guide countless times as I was learning Smash Ultimate from you. Just keep that in mind.
Because Kensu had no interest in an argument, Leffen had no way of provoking him in a way to turn the beef into something personal. Yet still, Kensu's opinions on the game offended Leffen so badly that Leffen decided to turn up the heat and use other tactics to egg on Kensu.
So rather than sit here and be in a cesspool of people who are upset and disgruntled about fucking this game, I'd rather be around the people who are interested in playing it. People who want to get better. People who don't care about that part of it, right? And you're upset about retweets and likes and people putting me and you in the same tweets. But you're being aggressive going after those tweets. Why'd you follow me? So you can fucking follow my fucking tweets and attack me every fucking time I fucking speak about Chip? Is that what it is? You wanna attack me? Where am I attacking you, Leffen? Where? Show me. Can you show me? You can't. Because every time your name comes up in my stream and everything of that nature, even in my YouTube comments, I still give you the fucking respect you actually fucking deserve. You know why? I said it before in the beginning of this. I actually respect you. I say again, I have all these people coming into my stream chat. You can't control them, but I can. I banned them, and that Kentu guy's a dick because he said fuck Leffen.
Understand that, but hopefully you will someday.
I'm gonna put this out here just so you know, and I'm pretty sure you understand this, but if you don't, I'm gonna make sure you understand it. You're not the end all be all when it comes to Chip. You're not. If you follow my Twitter and shit like that just to see my fucking tweets, just to come fucking ram at me about fucking Chip because you're afraid to be wrong, there's a problem with your fucking ego. You might need to fix that. You might actually need to fix that. I don't know. You tell me, Brody. You tell me.
This incident happened a month ago, but this behavior isn't new. Leffen has been following people's every move online and dunking on them since evidence.zip, and he's still doing it today. You can't make the Leffen has changed argument if he's still doing the stuff he did 10 years ago.
Clearly you don't like peace. You like to argue, right?
The lyrics right there. No, I'll pull it down as it goes along.
3 verses?
Yeah. All right. Do you want to hear? Okay. First of all, we're gonna let you hear how it goes, and then we'll do it. Okay.
So you get a feeling.
So we now know that Leffen starts random Twitter beefs with people as a quick way to display dominance over others, and it doesn't stop there. Leffen will also go after people to craft redemption arc narratives for himself so he can be seen as someone who's grown since evidence.zip, and also to use the extra publicity to grow his brand and rise to the top of the community. When he didn't have a sponsor in 2015, he went after Chillin as a way to make his own brand as the villain of the Smash community.
So the whole thing started, I think, with like, obviously I'm trying to go full time, and Chillin dude was sponsored, and to me he was just sponsored because he was in the documentary, right? And like, to me, I was just like, well, I deserve the sponsor. So it was both like a little bit of a jealousy, but also like, I know I can use this angle to like stir things up and make my own brand, because obviously sponsors are gonna see what I write about their things and like stuff like that.
Yeah. Obviously this beef was just banter, and the two don't really hold anything against each other, but it does help us contextualize why Leffen would beef with someone in the first place. He wants to use it to grow his platform to the top. In late 2017, HungryBox started becoming the best player in the world. He had begun his reign that would last about 2 years where he would dominate almost every tournament he attended. During this time, Leffen actually had a ton of respect for HBox as a competitor, but after he won the Big House 7, the community's opinion of HBox was beginning to fall. This was because he played a character that was considered boring and lame, which paved the way for Leffen to jump on the bandwagon and attack HBox to boost his reputation. I want to point out that Leffen didn't start the HBox hate movement. People disliked HBox several years before Leffen was even known. However, whether he started the movement or not, he still contributed to it more than any other person in the community. He knew that people didn't like HBox and exploited that to get away with consistently dunking on him. After the Big House 7, this is what Leffen had to say about HBox.
A few moments where I just lacked focus, and in those moments it just died every time, especially against HungryBox. I played well overall, But then during edge cards and like when he just approached me with pound, I would just like let up for a second and then he destroys you. He's really amazing at like noticing your weak points and just instantly killing you for it.
Yeah, he's like real. Dude's reactions are crazy.
Yeah.
It's like there was one moment you just like did like a spot dodge or something, or like an air dodge, and he just like snapped. Like just, I'm like, damn, dude, like who does that? Like,
yeah.
Later that month, Leffen would do a full 180 and denounce HBox at every opportunity. This came seemingly out of nowhere considering what Leffen had said just a few weeks prior. Now Leffen couldn't seem to go more than 5 seconds without criticizing HBox. At Genesis 5, only a few months after the Big House 7, Leffen lost to HBox twice and refused to shake hands with HBox both times to show that HBox isn't worth respecting. Normally, showing a lack of sportsmanship is seen as a toxic gesture that isn't tolerated, but somehow this was allowed to occur not once, but twice without any repercussions. Leffen would still continue to denounce HBox at every possible opportunity and even uploaded a video called One of the Many Reasons to Dislike HBox, where Leffen's friend Snowy detailed the negative experience he had with HBox.
Like, there's two kinds of people in this world. HBox fans and people who met him.
Yeah, the first time I met him, I asked him for a best of $5, puffed it up, and when he found out that I was a puff, he went his secondaries, he took 2 games, and then after the second game, he was like, alright, I don't want to keep playing. And he takes my money, he walks away, and I was wearing the HBox shirt that he made, like the one with the Q.
No!
Yeah, and he says to me, nice shirt, and he leaves. It was...
Are you? No, there's no way.
It would later be revealed that Snowy didn't actually mean the things he said about HBox and actually apologized to him. He claimed that he only said the things he said to gain validation from Leffen, yet when he was asked about his friendship with Leffen, he said he was only really friends with him because it would let him hang out with other top players. Combined with the fact that Leffen acted pretty abusive towards Snowy, and this sounds more like Snowy was used as Leffen's weapon rather than a genuine good faith criticism of HBox's behavior. This anti-puff/HBox campaign grew larger every time HBox won a tournament and almost turned HBox into the biggest villain in the community for no reason. This only got worse as time progressed until HBox finally took to Twitter to let out his frustrations about the way the community had treated him. So how would Leffen respond?
Got no sympathy for HBox, no one was cheering against him, but even then, maybe he would have more support if he hadn't been consistently awful in person to 99% of the community. Maybe try just once to not play the victim when you are the one to blame.
Nobody called his bluff. Leffen is more than willing to admit that he believes HBox deserved all the harassment he received. This was clearly more than just, I personally don't like HBox. Leffen wanted HBox gone and isolated from the rest of the community. Despite HBox's best attempts to privately squash his beef with Leffen, Leffen refused to settle things privately, or at all for that matter. He would not accept anything other than an unconditional surrender.
When Leffen claimed that HBox begged him to be unblocked on Twitter, for example, I happen to know that HBox politely asked Leffen to settle their beef. Leffen then went and rephrased this in the most vindictive way possible.
Fast forward to Genesis 6, where HBox would again win the tournament. Because of this win, a narrative was brewing in the community that Jigglypuff was killing the game, even though there was evidence that contradicted this idea.
In terms of viewership, I don't think that Puff is killing Melee at all. Like, if you guys saw the view count for Melee just this past weekend at Genesis, yeah, so if people are trying to make the argument that Puff is killing viewership, they need to find a different argument because that doesn't work.
Leffen would use this opportunity to question whether Jigglypuff should be banned or not. Yeah, banning Jigglypuff. And if you thought he would sneak in some anti-HBox comments, you'd be completely right.
I also want to be upfront about my biases, right? Like, this is gonna sound very harsh, and I don't want to make the video about him. So obviously I have had, an interesting, not cordial relationship with HungerBox. I have been pretty upfront about the fact that I hate him as a person. I actually don't mind him as a competitor, really, except for the fact that he cheated at Evo and didn't apologize for it. And yeah, he toes the line, but that's never been my real problem with HungerBox. And again, I don't want to make this discussion or this video about him, but I want to be upfront about the fact that I do have biases. If you do think that the only reason why I think the way I do is because of me disliking HungerBox, I can understand it. I don't think it's why, and I'm good friends with a lot of Puff players. But yeah, I want to be upfront about the fact that I'm not on the best terms with HungerBox. I don't like him. I don't like him as a person. And I've been you know, I've had a feud with him for a while.
There was no point to this video. I remember back when this video came out and was thoroughly confused as to who unironically wanted Jigglypuff banned. The wobbling discussion portion made sense and it was okay considering that it was a hot topic at the time as well, but that's all this video should have been. Adding the Puff section at the beginning where you make more attacks against HBox than you did legitimate arguments for a Puff ban just sounds like a not so subtle sneak diss towards HBox. Leffen made sure to go after HBox just because the community didn't like Puff. When Leffen saw a perfect opportunity to potentially take down HBox and isolate him from the rest of the community, he jumped on the hate train and almost rode it to victory. Honestly, someone throwing a crab at HBox was a blessing in disguise as the community began to rally behind HBox and support his dominance throughout the years. Had that not happened, I'm almost certain HBox would have quit Melee due to the constant harassment.
Crab mentality refers to the unwillingness of a community to let its individuals succeed. It's based on the behavior of crabs in a bucket, who will often prevent their peers from escaping by pulling them back from the brink of freedom, thus dooming them all. If Melee is to survive in the future, they'll have to learn to tolerate their top player. By trying to destroy HBox, they're only destroying themselves. Because at the end of the day, Hungrybox is Juan de Biedma. Despite playing for the past decade with the status of God, he's only human.
This situation also shows the double standard for how the community treats Leffen versus other people. Leffen had issues with HBox and chose to complain about it constantly to the public even when HBox presented multiple opportunities to squash the beef privately. There were no consequences for Leffen despite him uploading several videos, posting several anti-HBox tweets showing a lack of sportsmanship and even blackmailing HBox. But when Haxx had his issues with Leffen, lots of which were legitimate and more than just personal issues between Haxx and Leffen, he was expected to settle them privately, and since he didn't, he was banned. Leffen wanted to villainize HBox to create a hero narrative for himself and take out one of his biggest competitors. It didn't matter what it took, he was going to make sure he got his way by any means necessary. The Smash community went through an important and tragic movement in the summer of 2020 where several allegations of sexual misconduct came out about several prominent figures in the Smash community. It is important that the victims of these crimes feel safe to share their stories and for the abusers to be punished accordingly. However, when a false allegation is made, it is not only an insult to actual victims of these crimes, but it makes it harder for future victims to speak out against their abusers. Conversely, I also want to preface this section by saying that Zero deserved to be banned for what he did. For anyone who doesn't know, former top Smash 4 player Zero has admitted to sexting a 14-year-old girl named Katie when he was 19. This is unacceptable and I do not support Zero's actions in any way. However, during this movement, Leffen and Jisoo made several false allegations against Zero, and they should be punished as well for lying. This section is only meant to indict Leffen and Jisoo as liars, and nothing more. So I'm going to take some time out to talk about Jisoo first, because she is the start of this whole debacle. It all began when she released her initial allegations against Zero, claiming that he showed her explicit hentai on several occasions on a big screen television during their time at the Sky House. However, nobody else could confirm or deny her allegations despite living with 5 other people.
It doesn't even sound like something he would do. Maybe that's something he does on his own time, but to just throw it up on the big screen, especially with how crowded the room was, I feel like it's weird that she would make that claim and then nobody else with how crowded our houses were at any given time be able to back that up. I don't know where she at with that one. I'm disagree. I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. We would get on you for like walking slightly funny. So some shit like watching hentai on a big screen, we would have ate Zero alive, so.
On top of this, Jisoo made another confirmed false allegation where she claimed that Zero was abusive to his girlfriend Vanessa and started dating her when she was 15 and he was 20. But this is easily debunked by simply using Google to check their ages. In addition, the victim herself rejected the claims about both the abuse and her age.
I was outed in a story of me getting physically abused and how my age was something else, which is not true at all. That event gave me PTSD. Like, I've never suffered from PTSD or anything like that.
And this gets even worse when you consider that Jisoo claims she asked for permission before putting out the allegations, yet did not do that. This can only mean one thing. It wasn't an honest mistake, and rather a malicious attempt to cancel Zero.
If you make shit up to cancel someone, like actually, just for like your 10 seconds of fame, you're a piece of shit.
If you actually make false allegations and hurt the cases of current and future victims purely for your own selfish reasons, then you're the fucking scum of the earth.
The funniest part about all of this is that when Vanessa rejected the allegations, Jisoo replied with this.
Hi Vanessa, firstly I am sorry. I could have addressed this better. It was a heated moment when I saw you in Zero's response to my tweet despite hearing/seeing all these rumors and statements about his treatment of you. We will respect your wishes. Leave her alone.
Take a wild guess what she wants you to do. In fact, I'll let you guys at home play along. Does Vanessa want you to retract the allegations? Choice A, yes. So nobody believed Jisoo's allegations because they were most likely false considering the circumstances. This is where Leffen comes in. Leffen attempted to corroborate Jisoo's allegations with his own allegations. That also turned out to be false. Firstly, he accused Zero of looking at hentai with Japanese players at Apex 2013. And if this were to be true, then it wouldn't be impossible for him to show Jisoo hentai on a big screen at the Sky House. However, many of the players involved said that Leffen was wrong about the mature content being exchanged, which is most likely what occurred since Zero himself was a minor at the time. Secondly, he shared an allegation where Zero gave hentai to one of his underage mods, which would not only be a crime in and of itself, but would also corroborate Jisoo's story of Zero sharing hentai with people who didn't want it. However, not only did the moderator literally beg Zero for the content, but they weren't even a minor to begin with, so both aspects of Leffen's allegation were false. Now, one could obviously look at all this and say, well, maybe Leffen didn't know they were false, but even that is a lame excuse, because if that were the case, he would have vetted the allegations before sharing them, or asked Zero privately, which is also something he didn't do for M2K's allegations. You may ask, why would Leffen lie with these allegations? And the answer is simple. Standing against abusers during a Me Too movement would obviously give you a positive reputation. You would be seen as a hero, and for the time, Leffen was. But what Leffen and Jisoo essentially did was donate to charity with Monopoly money. They got the reputation boost for their involvement in the Me Too movement, but their involvement was fraudulent. Combined with the fact that Leffen confirmed that he spoke to Jisoo before making the false allegations, and this sounds more like a scheme created by Jisoo and Leffen to exploit the Me Too movement. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. At what point does all of this stop being a series of honest mistakes and instead becomes a pattern of behavior? To anyone who's unaware, do you want to see how the community refutes this argument? With this.
This is another unfalsifiable claim. Even if it is true that Jisoo and Leffen had spoken prior to Jisoo making her allegation, and even if Jisoo is in fact lying outright, I do not see how it's remotely reasonable to believe that Leffen was intentionally lying about this.
Need I remind you that Leffen didn't just push false allegations, he did so to help corroborate other false allegations. And even if Leffen didn't know these allegations were false, and this was just a series of mistakes, Leffen could still admit that his allegations were wrong upon further inspection. If I accidentally trip somebody, I still have to apologize even though it wasn't malicious. Leffen apologized to M2K when his situation was an issue. Why can't he do the same thing here? In fact, he doesn't even need to apologize, only admit that the information he shared was false. Why is Leffen absolved from all accountability? Especially since Zero attempted suicide, you could have at least admitted that some of the things you said turned out to be false. But he won't do that. And even if you apologized, at this point it wouldn't even be sincere, because Technicals has brought up your lies twice over the past couple of months, and your first instinct is to ignore and act like nothing is going on. So if you were to apologize now, it would just sound like we just forced it out of you and you're apologizing just for damage control. Leffen has become such a problem in our community because of us. We have put Leffen on an untouchable pedestal and invalidated any criticism towards him. Leffen is a perk to people? That was 10 years ago, and he was already banned for that. Leffen tries to destroy his enemies in malicious ways? You're a crazy conspiracy theorist that should be banned and get help. You present evidence that proves Leffen is a liar? Well, you're just a cockroach drama YouTuber, so your opinion is meaningless. Leffen has tried to ignore everything, and the community has aided him in doing so. Everyone tries to protect Leffen as if losing him would end the world. No matter the allegation, they will either ignore it for as long as they can, or come up with a lame excuse to justify what he did. It's getting to the point where Leffen can do anything he wants and get away with it, and the community will not only accept it as normal, but applaud and reward his behavior. The most frightening part is that nothing I said in this video is new information. Leffen has been doing this stuff for the longest. He has caused irreparable damage and will not be stopped unless dramatic measures are taken to prevent him from hurting and harassing people further. People really want to say Leffen evolved into a brand new person and fixed himself, but you can't make the 10 years ago argument when he was just harassing someone a month ago. What the community doesn't realize is that while the people who make the decisions are generally Leffen supporters aren't the majority. Leffen has steadily been losing support on all platforms as we speak, and will continue to do so because of the crimes he's committed. As people wake up to what's going on, the community leaders will be forced to speak out. And when they do, we can finally bring Leffen to justice once and for all. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.
Shoutouts to Night Dash,